everybody. Welcome back to Table for Us. Go ahead and pull up a chair and sit at the table and let's talk about our next topic. But before we do that, I always got to give glory to God because without Him, nothing that I do would be possible. All right. So I hope you guys are having a blessed day. You guys had a blessed week. Today, we are going to talk about my upbringing and relationship with my dad, basically becoming daddy's girl. When I was growing up, my dad wasn't always around. I have a few memories of my dad when I was growing up. And reason being because my father was 22 years old and my mom was 15 years old when I was born. So my grandfather, being a retired Marines, was very strict and he ran my dad off. He literally basically told my dad, I will end your life when I find you. So my dad, I think he went to LA or he was in school. I remember he was in college. He played college football. And then I believe he ended up going to the military himself and became a Marines, coincidentally. But I would have periodic communication with my dad. It was actually not that consistent. I feel like my dad was going through a lot in his life. And I feel he did the best that he could as a father. But growing up, I was very angry. And my dad would always make these promises to me. He would always promise to do something or to show up for something. And there was a lot of times that he didn't. So I would be waiting and he didn't show up. I wouldn't say that definitely affected me as an adult and my relationships when I got older. I had abandonment issues basically. And when someone would say they would do something or promise to do something, I would never wait. I would just go ahead and take care of whatever it was that I needed to get done. I had this issue with waiting on people to do stuff because I was so used to my dad saying he was going to do something and then he didn't do it. I do remember my dad had multiple relationships up until I probably was like maybe 20 years old, I think, when he finally got married and stuck with one person. But he had quite a few different girlfriends and relationships. My dad was a ladies' man, he was very handsome. My dad passed away. It is going on 7 years in October since he's been gone. But he was definitely a ladies' man and he was very charming. So I get why he had so many different women and so forth. On my dad's side, I have a sister and we are, I want to say, maybe 18 months apart. And we are not as close as I would want us to be, considering that we're very close in age. But because she grew up in another place and I grew up in another place, she would come over. My mom would have her come over and we would spend time. So we knew each other as we were growing up, but she had a more of a difficult upbringing than I did. She lost her mom when she was young. Her mom had passed away. So my dad try to do his best as far as taking care of my sister. So, in knowing that, I tried to be somewhat understanding that he was basically a single dad and trying to take care of my sister. But it still hurt that he would, and I knew his intentions were good, that he wanted to do these things that he would say that he would do. There was one time, though, I do remember my dad actually came through a clutch. I wanted a hamster, right? And I was begging for this hamster. When I finally got this hamster, I had just lost a cousin. One of my cousins was murdered. And when my dad finally did give me this hamster, I was so excited. I named him Christopher after my cousin who had passed away. And then I believe I was in middle school. So I had this crush on this boy named Jeffrey. So my hamster name was Christopher Jeffrey. So I remember like my dad actually coming through. Like he told me he was going to get me this hamster and he actually got me the hamster. But I remember so many other times that I just wanted to spend time with my dad. So I feel like his absence when I was growing up caused me to look for love in all the wrong places, right? It also caused me to, in a lot of the relationships that not, well, I was in four serious relationships, but it caused me to have this tug of war thing with my emotions and my feelings where it was like, I feel like you're going to leave me, right? I feel like you're going to abandon me. Like my dad, I felt abandoned for a long time. So I would initiate an argument and push that person away, right? Intentionally, because I had this fear that they were going to leave me. I dealt with this for quite some time, but I was very fortunate to have my godfather who stepped in many ways that he could step in. He was actually the neighborhood father to all of us and making sure like those of us who didn't have our fathers around, He would basically step in, take us on field trips, sleepovers at his house. There was so much that he would do. So I truly appreciate my godfather for being there and stepping in when I needed him to. I still wanted my dad because there were some children who lived in the neighborhood who dads were actually there. And there would be some times where I would just cry and I would just be so sad that my dad wasn't around because I just wanted to hug him. I just wanted my dad to be around. Every year for school, they would always have us make Mother's Day gifts, Father's Day gift, and I would make this Father's Day gift, but wouldn't want to make a Father's Day gift because I didn't see my dad for a while. I became pregnant when I was 19 years old with my son. And when he was born, I was 20. When my dad found out that I was pregnant, honestly, I didn't know what to expect, but he was so excited, y'all. He was so excited. And then on top of that, I was pregnant with a boy. So my dad only has myself and my sister. So my son pretty much became the son that he never had, right? And in that moment, I realized that I needed my dad more as an adult than I did as a child. Not saying that you don't need your both parents when you're children, but I was so much more grateful of our relationship that came from the time I was 19 until he passed away 7 years ago, that I had this amazing relationship with my dad. It was literally a relationship that I always wanted with both my parents, but I got it with my dad, right? So I would call my dad, I would talk to him about different things. He loved showing up for birthdays and Christmases. So basically, I feel like everything that he didn't do or get to do with me, he made sure he did with my children. He literally spoiled them. And I was like, Dad, stop buying them all this stuff. Like, they don't need all of this. Christmas, he was like Santa to them, right? He could do no wrong. That was grandpa. And I love that all my children, except for my youngest one, he never got a chance to meet him. But my older children, they love their grandpa. He would show up when he, for whatever, if he could show up, because a lot of times he lived in another state. But he was a really great dad. There was so much that my dad did. And I think I get a lot of that from him as well. In another episode, I talk about the things I get from my mom. But from my dad, I get so much from my dad as well. I have his face. I see my mom in me sometimes in certain facial expressions, but I feel like I tend to look more like my dad than my mom most of the time. But my dad was a model. He was an actor. He played in quite a few different movies. He did a commercial with Joe Montana. I am a huge 49ers fan, and a lot of that comes from my dad. Niners. My dad used to work for Boeing. And if you don't know what that is, they make most of the planes, basically, all of the commercial planes and some of the jets and so forth. And my dad went to school and became a certified aircraft mechanic. So he would work on all the planes. When he was doing that, he was up in Seattle, Washington, when he worked there. He was in the Marines. He loved to ride horses and so forth. My dad lived the best life, although his life was cut short, in my opinion, and so abruptly. He wasn't sick, he just, an accident happened and we lost him. My dad lived an amazing life, right? And I'm just glad that although I missed him during my childhood, I was able to enjoy him in my adulthood, have that daddy daughter relationship, have those conversations and so forth with him. So one of the things I can really say for you dads that are out here listening, if you have a daughter, it is very important that you are her first love, right? That you show her all the love, attention, and that you teach her the right kind of love so that she doesn't go out looking for love in all the wrong places and she end up in toxic situations that she can't get out of. So I feel, as me being a woman, because of his absence during that time, I definitely latched on to different people, different guys that I should not have. And had I had that love that I had in my adulthood from him early on, I feel like my relationships would have been different. I would have known better as far as red flags and different things to stay away from. When I did start forming that relationship, and now that I think so much about that relationship and the dad that I grew to love and admire and adore, and see how he loved his wife and He loved my sister and me and his grandchildren. That's the type of love that I want in my life. A man who is going to be hardworking, going to be supportive, he's going to show up for his children. Although again, my dad wasn't there when I was growing up. He from 19 on, my dad was there. I remember one time he drove from he lived when he passed away, he lived in Missouri, and my sister was living in Nevada. And I remember my dad, because my sister, she was going through something with her husband at the time, or ex-husband now. My dad drove from Missouri to Nevada to get my sister, my nephew, and all her stuff. And I want to say he drove her back to Missouri for her to stay there until she got situated. And that's the type of stuff that my dad would do. He would go out of his way. My grandmother and grandfather on my dad's side had 8 children. Actually, they had 10, but 8 that actually lived into adulthood. And my dad was one of 8. And he was the one that was always looking out for everybody. I remember him taking care of my two mama. We weren't allowed to call her grandma. I remember him taking care of my two mama when she had her stroke. She stayed with him and he would take care of her. And then when he needed help and she had to go into a nursing home, I remember him always being the one going to go visit her. And I remember him saying, your two mama says she hadn't seen you in a while. You need to get up there to the nursing home and go visit her. And I would say, all right, I'm gonna get up there. I'm gonna get up there. And my two mama, she was so funny. She had these things. So if you would go visit my two mama, you had to come with one of these things, either some juicy fruit gum, a payday, and I can't remember what her favorite soda was, but I would always make sure I had either juicy fruit or payday. Even though she wasn't supposed to eat it, I would still bring it up there because my dad, he made sure that we had a relationship with her and that we would get up there and see her. My father, again, I'm just so proud of him and everything that he did and his accomplishments. And I owe so much to him as well. Just the, I feel like God, he knows our life before we even do, right? And I feel like God made sure that my dad was there when I really needed him because I needed him during that time. So he made sure he was there when I really needed him. And in my mind, I'm like, I needed my dad when I was little too. So I'm appreciative of the fact that although he wasn't there when I was little, he was there when I really needed him, which was adulthood. And I was able to have conversations for a long time. FaceTime when he got an iPhone. I really missed those FaceTime calls. And he would have a designated day that he would call me and then a designated day that he would call my sister. But of course, we would call and talk and other stuff. But he always made on that day, that was the day that he would call and talk to me or talk to my sister. And I really miss those conversations. So, one thing that I would really say here is love your parents and cherish them while they're here. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about my dad. I have his pictures all over in my house in different places and so forth. And matter of fact, this picture right here stays on my desk. So, this is a picture of me and my daddy. I might have been probably like 16 or 17 years old here. So there was some times where my dad was around. It just wasn't the consistent that I wanted when I was growing up as a little girl. But I appreciate and I cherish the times that I did have him. I can't remember any times where I had like any type of fallouts or arguments or so forth with my dad. One thing I will say is if I did ask for something and he wasn't able to do it, he would just say, you know what, honey, let me see if I can do that. And if he wasn't able to do it, he would just tell me. That was one thing that he started to be better on later on as I got older. So I really appreciate that from him. And then sometimes he would surprise me. He would say he couldn't do it, but he would actually end up doing it. And I think that was his way because I did tell him how it affected me that he would make these promises that he didn't keep when I was growing up. So he definitely listened when I would tell him. He listened all the time. I would call him about so much stuff. Like that was the parent that I called and talked to and just poured my heart out about everything. And he just was so sweet and he would listen and then he would pray. So after my grandmother was the one who introduced me to church, I feel like my dad kept it going and making sure, like when I was going through certain stuff, he would always remind me, you know what, honey, you need to pray. And if I couldn't pray, then he would pray. And then I would just listen on the phone. So I really appreciate that God pretty much play chess with our lives. Everything that he do is strategic. There's a reason behind it. And we're not supposed to that. We're just supposed to trust the process and the path that we are on. So I am very grateful to God. I'm very grateful for the parents that he blessed me with. I'm very grateful for just my life that I went through, because I feel like it has definitely shaped me and molded me into the person I am today. It has taught me so much. It has left me with great memories. So focus on the good, not the bad. Cherish your parents while they're here. Forgive them if there was something that they've done or said that you didn't agree with. And have that communication. Talk to them. If something's bothering you, if something's wrong, talk to them respectfully. So I'm very happy that I was able to do that with my dad, and very grateful and happy that he listened and he made corrections in things that he could make corrections in. So again, men, just be in your children's lives, period, right? But especially your daughters need you. They need to know that you are their first love. And I didn't say this in my other episode, but moms, it's very important that you are your son's first love, so that they know how to love a woman the right way, know how a woman's supposed to treat them. And the same thing with little girls and their dads. Know what good love is from a man, know what not good love is, and be able to get out of that situation, right? So I just encourage non existent parents to just show up. It's never too late, right? It's never too late. As long as they're still living, there is still time to repair and fix that relationship, especially since mine didn't get fixed and repaired until I was, like I said, 19 years old. Yeah, I just, that's all I have. Thank you guys for pulling up a seat to the table and listening to my journey and my relationship with my dad. I hope that you guys are able to take something away from here, and that you're able to, if you have a non-existent relationship with your parent, or you have a non-existent relationship with your child, you're able to fix it and turn around. Hi, I'm Nicolette Royal, and I am the owner of Gem Royalty. So Gem Royalty is a service business, and what I provide is teeth whitening, tooth gems, permanent jewelry, and piercings. Yes. Now, the piercings that I can do your nose, I can do your ears, and belly button. That's it. I'm not doing anything else. My teeth whitening services, if you're somebody who just started out with and you've never had your teeth whitened, I normally recommend that you get an hour treatment, and then you just every month you get a 30-minute cleaning. So I got started in this last year, actually. Has it been a year? Yes, last year. I went to a conference in Atlanta called Invest Fest, and I had always would see, it was Janet Jackson. She was actually the first person that I saw, and she had a diamond on her tooth. And I was like, oh, I want one of those. I'm like, how much that costs or whatever. So I end up seeing a booth at Invest Fest, and they were doing tooth gems. And it's not a diamond, it's actually a Swarovski crystal that you get, and they use, well, I use, and I believe they was using the same thing, but I use basically the same dental glue that the dentists use to put your braces on. So if you take care of it, it will stay on there for up to 6 months, is what it will last you. So I do the tooth gems, the teeth whitening, and permanent jewelry. So the permanent jewelry was a service that I added shortly after I started Gem Royalty. So I have a bracelet on right now. This bracelet has been on for probably about 6 months, and it's called permanent jewelry because it doesn't have a clamp. So this does not come off, it stays on. The only way that I could take this off is if I cut it off, basically. So I do the permanent jewelry bracelets, permanent jewelry necklace. You can also do an anklet as well. I've seen some people do rings, but I stay away from those. I do sterling silver, gold filled, and what gold filled is It's not gold plated. It's almost solid gold, but it's a percentage less than solid gold. So you have solid gold and you have gold fill. Gold plated normally just means that they've painted over something, but it's actually gold fill. So it'll last you a long time. And it's actually cheaper than getting solid gold. And depending on what it is you're getting, I charge by the inches. But you can find me on Instagram at Gem Royalty. Our services are in Las Vegas. So if you're in the Las Vegas area, you can book an appointment with us to either get a piercing, your teeth whitened, a tooth, or permanent jury. I'll put a link below for our booking site. Yeah. So I'm Nicole Royal, owner of Gem Royalty. And I hope if you're in the Las Vegas area that you will go ahead and check us out and book one of our services. All right. Most importantly, I encourage you to ask God to help you. Sometimes we don't know where to start or how to start. Ask God for guidance and He will help you. All right. So, you guys stay blessed. Thank you for listening to Table for Us. Take care.